Now let's go from imagination to physical realities. Our next speaker will describe how the Singapore government just goes about the process of product design. And joining us to speak on the topic of rapid experimental product development in the government, we're joined now by Hongyi, who's the director.
Hey everyone, my name's Hong, and I'm here to talk to you about our new team, OGP, and how we're doing rapid experimental product development in the Singapore government. Can you put up the slides, please? So this is our team, Open Government Products, and this is who we are. We're an experimental team of engineers, designers, and data scientists who build technology for the public good. And as of today, we're just about a year old. And in that time, we've built a whole bunch of different products. So we've got about 15 different products in various stages of production right now. So there's stuff like Parking SG, which is sort of one of our most well-recognized products. It's a mobile app that lets you pay for street parking instead of having to fuss with coins or coupons or things like that. There's Form SG, which is a sort of digital form building tool that's meant to sort of help the Singapore government go paperless and get rid of paper forms in the government, as well as some new experimental products like SGID, which is our sort of digital identity system that is sort of privacy preserving while allowing for ease of integration and things like that. So the premise of the team is pretty simple. What if you built an organization that operated like a modern tech company but worked on public sector problems? And what this means is basically threefold. Our mission is to experiment, exemplify, and evangelize. So by experiment, we mean like looking at all the new things that the tech sector is doing. So you're looking at yes, technology, cloud adoption, like AI, like things like that, but also like really fundamental things like sort of organizational design, management techniques, how you do performance evaluations, stuff like that. There's a lot of how modern organizations are run that's different from how the government traditionally operates. And that's a very big part of what we're experimenting with. We exemplify these in our own practices. So our team, we are our own best product in terms of like figuring out what works. So we eat our own dog food. And then we evangelize the best of these to the rest of the public service. So that's how we're trying to go sort of, instead of tradition, there's this traditional approach of like going inside out of like modernizing the government. And then this is the outside in approach, the complementary approach of like taking what modern technology looks like and modern tech organizations look like and bringing that to public sector problems. So the first thing to start off with is whether or not we build useful products, because if we can't do that, then the rest of this is basically all useless, right? And to kick off, we have go.gov.sg. So go.gov.sg is pretty simple. It's a URL shortener. It's like bit.ly or tinyurl or anything like that. Some of you might have used it to come to this talk today. The only difference with those is that it ends with the official .gov.sg domain. And this helps protect people against phishing attacks because they can be sure that this is an official government link as opposed to some random thing that some random person created that might be malicious. This was built, I think, about last year at our hackathon in January, so January 2019. And since then, we've had about 74,000 links created on the system and 76 million clicks on those links. So not huge numbers by American standards, but pretty big by Singaporean standards. Next, we have Form SG. So as I mentioned before, Form SG is a digital form building tool. It's a bit like Google Forms for the government. We use the main difference being is that we use a sort of end-to-end encryption system in order to enhance like privacy and security and things like that. And the goal with Form SG is very simple. Traditionally, it would take you about 3 months to 6 months for a government officer to build a digital form or put the request in order to build a digital system. And with Form SG, we get it down to like 20 minutes. So you basically just drag, drop, click a link, just like Google Forms, and you get something like this. It's a digital form, pretty straightforward. And the goal of Form SG basically was to get rid of paper forms in the Singapore government. So when we first started this, we estimated there were about 60,000 forms across the government that we needed to digitize. And as of today, we have about 40,000 forms created in the system with about 50 million form submissions between them. So I don't know how many of these 40,000 forms are new forms versus old forms that have been digitized, but still we're in a pretty close order of magnitude in order to successfully get rid of paper forms all across the Singapore government. That's a pretty big deal. To give you an example of some of the features that we have here, one of the new features that we have is this sort of a verified contact information field. So when you sign up for digital services, you have to verify your email address, your phone number by putting in a code or something like that. Well, it turns out the government didn't have this. And so a lot of our contact information databases were out of date. So you couldn't contact information for like next of kin or like medical records or like subsidy schemes or anything like that. And now any government officer can just have this out of the box, again, less than 20 minutes. So next we have Isomer. So Isomer is a website template system because government websites are not famous for being very good. In fact, they're quite famous for being, kind of janky sometimes. And so we thought instead of like trying to build good websites one by one, we built a really simple website template. It runs fast. It's hosted securely. It's very easy to use. It works on mobile devices, all that good stuff. And all any government person needs to do in order to use this is just change the content. You swap out the pictures, you change the text around a bit, and really, really quickly, you have a good government website up and running, without much trouble. So again, normally takes 3 to 6 months to bring up a government service. With Isomer, you can get a website from conception to launch in less than 2 days. So that's one of our fastest ones. Most of the time is just spent editing the content. So yeah. So for Isomer, we're about 76 websites right now. So across the government, we estimate there are about 300 to 400 different websites that we think can go on Isomer as a sort of simple static website. And we're at 76 of them. So making good progress, but still quite a ways to go. So those are some of our bigger sort of production products. We also have a few sort of smaller experimental products that we're working on. So this right here is Homer. Homer is our quarantine reporting system that we have as part of our COVID operations. Basically, if you are in, basically if you come to Singapore and you get quarantined due to contact or whatever, due to travel, then you install this app on your phone, you report your location every once in a while, and then you fill in a survey to answer if you have any symptoms or anything like that, just to check on people. So something we put up together really quickly in just a couple of weeks, and it's still running live today with a few 100,000 people having gone through the system. We have Postman, which is our mass messaging tool for the Singapore government. So I don't know if any of you have signed up for the Singapore government WhatsApp or Telegram updates on the latest COVID situation. So that's run through Postman, but it's also used in a lot of sort of smaller use cases as well. So if the community center or something needs to message something to its residents to inform them of an update, or let people know of a new scheme or something like that, that's what Postman's for. It's a simple mass messaging tool across email, SMS, WhatsApp, Telegram, things like that. And then we have experimental services like SGID as well. So SGID is our new experimental sort of digital identity protocol. Basically, the idea is that to make it really, really easy to integrate, just sign in with Google, sign in with Apple, you can sign in with your SGID. But the key difference being that we use a sort of privacy preserving protocol so that even if all the different businesses in the country were to use SGID, there would still be privacy protection because each of them will get a different unique identifier for each person, so that if anyone has any data leaks or anything like that, it doesn't compromise the rest of the country, which is pretty good as we get digitized more and more. So we've talked a bit about sort of the impact and usefulness of some of our products, but the next question we often get is is our stuff reliable? Right? We're an experimental team, we do all kinds of experimental things, so surely this stuff, while cool, must not work too reliably. But it turns out not to be the case that much. So here's parking.sg. You can see that it pretty much runs fingers crossed all the time. And for Postman, which is we just launched back in May, we still have a better than 99.5% uptime. I know it's not the 4 nines uptime for a lot of the production tech services in the States, but still one incident, but otherwise it runs pretty much fairly consistently. This is the one that we're most proud of for Isomer. So as we talked about before, government websites are not famous for being super reliable. On average, a government website in the Singapore government goes down for about 900 minutes a year. So that's quite a few hours across the whole year. I think 15 hours or so. For Isomer websites, we've got this down to 9 minutes a year, so 100 times reduction in downtime. And the way we do this is actually pretty interesting. We don't do this by sort of doing really fancy engineering or having super resilient on-call schedules and multiple systems laying on top of each other. We actually do this by stripping out a lot of the complexity that goes into building a modern website. So we take out we don't have a CMS, we don't have a live running server. We've really go to a really bare bones static site architecture to really just get rid of as many moving parts as possible, so the website has very, very, very few things to fail. For those of you who don't know what a static site architecture is, it's that instead of having a server that dynamically generates a web page to send to you every time you visit, we pretty much just pre-process the content and load it on content delivery networks so that it can be distributed quickly, evenly, and with very little error. So we didn't just cherry pick a couple of our products. This is fairly consistent across all of our products that we have pretty good reliable uptime. And yeah, most of this is this is including planned downtime. So this is something that we try to show that with modern tech practices and modern sort of, I guess, tech development, having websites that go down every week is not normal. You can have government websites that are as reliable as accessing your Gmail. And I say this hopefully, knowing that Gmail goes down, once every couple of years. And the way we do this is actually pretty interesting. So the way we do this is, rather than following the sort of process of how government websites, so government has a lot of regulations around how websites and digital services are built in order to achieve security and resilience and all that. But our team being an experimental team doesn't follow a lot of those practices, but we still want to make sure that we are achieving the correct outcomes of resilience, reliability, and security. And we do this by having external penetration testing. So this is one of the measures this is one of the methods that we use to achieve rapid product development, which is that we have different methods and different experimental approaches to building, isomer and forms and things like that. But we still have external parties come in, pen test, validate our systems, and really, just see on an outcome basis, are we, at the end of the day, are we achieving better, like the same security and reliability or better, even if we're doing something different? And that has let us move a lot more quickly than we would have otherwise. So next, we're talking about the cost, right? So experimental teams, you might build good products, they might be really resilient and all that, but experimental teams normally cost a lot of money, and each product would be quite expensive. But for our team, it turns out actually that's not really the case. Like, our team sizes are pretty small. So you can see here go.gov, which is run 74,000 different links, is just 2 people. Parking.sg, which is used for all the cars across the country, is run by a team of 3 people. And form.gov.sg, which is running pretty much all of our digital forms, well, not all, but a big portion of our digital forms, is a team of only 6 people. So headcount-wise, we're really small. And in terms of money, we're pretty small as well. So parking.sg costs about $2,500 a month in terms of infrastructure cost. And for Isomer, it costs just $840 a month for all 74 websites. Not per website, for all 74 websites, which means that each government website running on Isomer costs just over $10 a month, which is really, really low for a government website. And this is an example of how we do this. So this is Digital MC. So it's a digital medical certificate system. For those of you who don't know, a medical certificate is a doctor's note, basically, to excuse you from work if you're sick. And we move this from government infrastructure onto commercial cloud infrastructure. And by doing the same app, same systems, same reliability, if not higher, same features of government infrastructure, we managed to go from $21,000 a month to just $600 a month. This is a 35 times cost reduction in our infrastructure costs just by moving off government systems. And it just might seem like you're saving money, but cost savings are let you move faster, because if things are cheap and things are easy to manage, then you have less bureaucracy, you're more able to test different things out, and getting cost reductions are a really big part about experimental product development. Which sort of brings us to our final section in terms of how do we achieve all this, right? How do we operate as a team? So we've talked a bit about the outcomes. How do we operate as a team in order to achieve rapid experimental product development? So the first thing is that we use off-the-shelf cloud software. This may not seem like a really big deal to you guys in the private sector, but I can tell you within the government, being able to use cloud solutions has been a big push that we've managed to get through. And using these things lets us bootstrap and not waste our time on all these solved issues and really focus on where our value proposition is. So yeah, first big step, just don't build things if you don't have to. Reuse existing systems if you can. Next is that we run an annual hackathon. So this is perhaps one of the things that people find most interesting. For the month of January every year, we stop all non-essential work, and our team goes to do a hackathon for the annual month. And this is not just sitting at a computer typing code. What we do is we go visit schools, hospitals. We visited the meteorological center. We visited the port authority to really understand the problems that public sector servants are facing on the ground. We come back, we do design workshops and studies, and we build something that's not just a demo by the end of the month, but an actual working product that we hope people will use. And so here's an example of some of the products that we built this year's hackathon. Overall, for 2020, we had 28 different hackathon projects, and of which 7 of them are live running production services still today. So you have Homer and Postman, like we talked about. We have Redeem SG, which is a sort of coupon distribution system for distributing things like grocery vouchers and things like that for people who are needed during the pandemic. As well as on the more social side of things, OK or Not, which is an online quiz / interactive tool that tries to encourage constructive conversations about race and racism. And finally, we've talked a lot about how we build products and how we operate, but the big thing here is that we need to make sure we take care of our people. And so we redid a lot of the career tracks in government because the government didn't traditionally have a lot of career structures for technical roles like software engineering, product managers, and things like that. And so we worked with industry, got as much information as we could, and rewrote all these career tracks. And then we also went to, and we also redid how we did performance evaluation. So this here is an example performance evaluation sheet that every OGP officer gets every 6 months. And we do things like 360 peer evaluation. We weight it by confidence and give sort of like actionable feedback in terms of strengths and areas for improvement. Again, not really fancy stuff from the private sector, but redoing how we do performance evaluation, make sure we have the right people with the right careers and the right skills in the government in order to achieve rapid experimental product development. So yeah, that's who we are. We are the Open Government Products team. And if you want to learn more about us, you can check us out at open.gov.sg. But otherwise, thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you, Hongyi, for that update on rapid product development in government.